ghost from the deep, the signal came without warning. A deep, slow pulse. A metallic heartbeat that echoed through the silent void. It was not random static. It was deliberate. Ancient, dangerous. Captain Elias Rourke sat alone in the observation deck of the Hawthorne, his patrol ship drifting in the shadow of a dead star. The stars beyond were cold and unblinking, yet the sound in his earpiece was alive. "Captain," his comm officer said, voice trembling, "we've confirmed it. The signal is coming from the ice field on the far side of the system." Rourke leaned forward. "What kind of signal?" The officer hesitated. "It's human, sir, but not from any current fleet registry. The encryption is old, 3 centuries old." Rourke froze. 3 centuries. There was only one ship from that era with encryption like that. One ship whose name still sent shivers through veterans' bones. The Invictus, the human supercarrier. That disappeared during the Orion Wars. A vessel so massive it could blot out the stars. A ship so feared that entire alien fleets would turn and run at its approach. And it had been dead for 300 years. Until now. The Hawthorne broke orbit and began the slow crawl toward the ice field. The system's lightless star cast, no. Warmth. The frozen asteroids drifted like ancient tombstones. The deeper they went, the stronger the signal became. It was steady now, almost like a heartbeat. Or a war drum. "Visual contact," the sensor officer called out. Through the viewport, Rourke saw it. At first, it looked like another chunk of ice. But as they drew closer, the shape became clear. Black hull plating. Angled armor that caught the faint glimmer of distant starlight. The sheer size of it made the Hawthorne look like a toy. The Invictus lay half buried in the ice, silent and still. Yet somehow alive. They sent drones first. The machines buzzed across the icy surface, scanning for life, for power. 1 drones. Feed flickered, and then cleared to show massive blast doors on the carrier's flank. Carved into the steel were faded words in human script. Fortis Invicta. Rourke's hand tightened on the armrest. "Dock us, now." The Hawthorne's magnetic. Clamps locked onto the ancient hull. The boarding crew moved in, their suits crunching over ice that had not been disturbed for centuries. Inside, the corridors were dark and cold. Every footstep echoed. Dust hung in the frozen air. Then, a voice, deep, mechanical, patient. "Identify yourself." The crew froze. "Captain Elias Rourke, Earth Defense Command," Rourke said, his voice steady. There was a pause. "Then, you carry the blood of the old wars." "Access granted." The lights blazed to life. From the bridge to the engine core, the Invictus woke like a sleeping giant. Ice cracked and fell in great slabs from the hull. The low hum of its engines began to grow, vibrating through the floor like the breath of some great beast. In the Hawthorne's control room, warning lights flared. Energy readings spiked. "Sir," the engineer said, eyes wide, "this ship, it's nuclear, fusion, and something else. Power readings are off the scale." Rourke turned to face the Invictus's main console. "Ship's eye, state your purpose." The voice returned, steady and cold. "Protocol final remains incomplete." "Threat level ongoing." Rourke frowned. "What threat?" "The Orion Wars ended centuries ago." The AI paused, then spoke again. "Wars end. Enemies adapt." Hours later, Rourke stood on the viewing platform as the Invictus's engines roared. To life. He knew the Coalition would hear about this. The galaxy had long feared the return of this monster ship. Rumors would spread faster than light. And fear was a weapon. "Captain," his comm officer whispered, "incoming transmission. It's the Galactic Coalition High Council." Rourke gave a grim smile. They didn't waste time. The holographic image of alien council members flickered. Into the air, their faces drawn with fear and anger. "Captain Rourke," the lead counselor said, "shut down that ship immediately. The Invictus is a relic of war. It has no place in our galaxy." Rourke's voice was calm. "It's already awake, and it doesn't answer to you." The counselor's eyes narrowed. "Then you have doomed us all." The transmission cut out. Rourke turned back toward the viewing window. The black supercarrier loomed before him, massive and silent, yet brimming with power. And deep inside, he felt it. The galaxy had just changed. The awakening the ice cracked like thunder. From deep inside the asteroid field, the Invictus shifted, its massive hull grinding against stone and frost. Centuries of frozen silence were breaking apart. Captain Rourke stood on the Hawthorne's bridge, watching the view feed. Giant slabs of ice fell away, drifting into the void. Lights pulsed along the carrier's armored spine. Bright, deliberate. Alive. The ship wasn't just starting up. It was waking. "Power levels climbing," the engineer said, his voice tight. "This thing's pulling energy from multiple sources." "It's, sir. I think it's making its own fuel." Rourke's eyes narrowed. The Invictus had been built in a time when Earth feared extinction. Back then, humans didn't just make warships. They made monsters. The boarding team moved deeper inside. Dust floated in beams of white light as the corridors lit up one by one. When they reached the bridge, the room glowed with a soft golden hue. Control stations came alive, ancient screens clearing to reveal tactical maps, old battle logs, and encrypted files. Then the voice returned, systems restored, crew detected, awaiting mission parameters. Rourke stepped forward. "I, you said there's an unfinished war. Explain." "Access to final protocol requires command clearance Alpha 1. You are not authorized." "I'm the highest ranking Earth officer here," Rourke snapped. "Correction, you are now." The lights dimmed for a moment, then the screens shifted. A list of names appeared, all marked KIA. Rourke's was the only one marked active. Outside, the Invictus's engines roared. The sound wasn't like any modern ship. It was deeper, heavier, almost like the heartbeat of a predator. The ship pulled free from the ice completely, revealing the full length of its body. It was enormous. 2 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapon arrays that no modern navy dared to use. "Sir," the comm officer said, "we're picking up transmissions. Multiple fleets inbound. And sir, the coalition knows." Rourke almost smiled. Of course they knew. The galaxy always listened for the sound of giants waking. In the distance, through the black mist of the asteroid field, a small flotilla of alien warships appeared. They weren't firing yet. The lead ship sent a transmission. The alien commander's face appeared on screen, his voice dripping with fear and arrogance. "Human vessel Invictus, you are ordered to shut down and submit to coalition custody. That ship is banned under the Treaty of Orion. Failure to comply will be met with force." Rourke didn't flinch. "You want it? Come take it." The alien's eyes flickered in anger before the transmission cut. Inside the Invictus, the AI's voice grew colder. "Incoming hostiles detected. Initiating defensive. Readiness." Panels opened across the ship's armor, revealing ancient weapon ports. The hum of power grew louder, vibrating through the Hawthorne's hull. "Sir," the engineer whispered, "these weapons, they shouldn't even exist anymore. Half of them are banned tech." "That's why we're still here," Rourke said. The alien flotilla moved closer, their weapons charging. The Invictus didn't wait. A single lance of energy burst from its forward array, so bright it turned the darkness into day. The lead enemy ship was split in half instantly, debris spinning into the void. The rest of the fleet stopped dead. No one moved. No one fired. And then the AI spoke again. Defensive action complete. Shall we proceed to final protocol? Rourke stared at the screens. Whatever final protocol was, it wasn't meant for a skirmish. It was meant for something bigger. Shadows in the council. The Invictus floated in the cold dark, its weapons still glowing faintly from the single devastating shot. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge, staring at the wreckage of the alien fleet. He expected more ships to arrive. Reinforcements, revenge. Instead, the comm officer's face turned pale. Sir, we intercepted an encrypted coalition broadcast. I think you should hear it. The recording crackled, filled with alien voices, speaking urgently. The translation scrolled across the screen. The fleet failed. The Invictus is active. It will draw them here. Rourke frowned. Them? The engineer swallowed hard. Sir, they weren't coming to destroy us. They were trying to stop something else. Far across the galaxy, in the heart of the Galactic Council's chamber, a storm was brewing. Representatives from dozens of species argued over each other, their voices sharp with fear. The human warship is awake, hissed the Devorian delegate. If it moves beyond its hiding place, we all die. Better to destroy it now than wait for the scourge to follow its signal. Another shouted. From the shadows of the chamber, High Chancellor Varen raised a clawed hand. The noise stopped instantly. Destroying it is no longer possible, Varen said coldly. The Invictus has awakened fully, and that means Earth has chosen to return to the game. His eyes glinted. The galaxy will tremble before this ends. Back on the Invictus, the AI began running strange calculations. Symbols and coordinates flashed across the displays, none of which matched any modern charts. Where is that? Rourke asked. Origin point of incoming threat. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Rourke's gut tightened. Threat? Designation. Scourge Armada. Probability of planetary extinction, 92%. Historical note. Last engagement ended with Invictus deploying Omega Strike. The engineer's voice cracked. Omega Strike? That's a planet killer, sir. In human history, there had been whispers of Omega-class weapons, devices so powerful they could erase entire worlds. They weren't meant for war between nations. They were meant for things that could end species. Now, it seemed, one of those things was coming. Sir, the comm officer said, we're getting a wideband transmission. Not from the Coalition, from Earth. The message was short, but every word carried weight. Defend the line, no retreat, no surrender. Rourke looked at his crew, then at the massive ship's forward viewport, where distant stars glittered like cold eyes. Set course for the coordinates, he ordered. If the Scourge are coming, we're meeting them head-on. The Invictus's engines roared to life, burning brighter than they had in centuries. Far behind them, in the shadows of the council chamber, Chancellor Varen leaned forward, his voice a whisper only the closest aides could hear. Let them fight the Scourge, he said, and when both are broken, the galaxy will belong to us. The outpost the Invictus dropped out of FTL with a deep, resonant thud that shook the crew's bones. Outside the viewport, an uncharted star burned dim and red. Orbiting it was something impossible. A massive station floated in the dark, human-made, but old, very old. Its armor was scarred and pitted, its surface covered in frozen debris. But the most shocking art wasn't that it still existed. It was that it was still powered. Lights burned along its hull in slow, steady pulses. Like a heartbeat. Sir, the sensor officer whispered. I'm reading human tech signatures from 2 centuries ago. Before the Exodus, Rourke leaned forward. Open a hailing channel. Static hissed for a long moment. Then a voice, deep, calm, and unmistakably human, answered. Identify yourself. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of the United Earthship Invictus. We're here under direct Earth command." A pause. Then the voice replied, "Earth is dead." The bridge fell silent. Even the ship's AI paused its processing for a fraction of a second. Rourke's voice hardened. "Earth is not dead. And I have my orders." "Then you are either lying," the voice said, "or you have no idea what's coming." A docking corridor extended from the station with a grinding groan. The crew's tension was so thick it felt like the air itself weighed more. Rourke and 2 Marines boarded the outpost. Inside, they found narrow metal corridors lit by flickering strips. Everything smelled of oil and dust. At the heart of the station was a command room, and in it, a single man. He wore an ancient Earth Fleet uniform, the fabric worn thin but clean. His face was lined, his eyes cold and sharp. "I am Commander Hall," he said. "And if you've reawakened the Invictus, then you've doomed us all." Rourke didn't flinch. "We've intercepted the Scourge signal. They're 72 hours out." Hall nodded slowly, as if he had expected this moment for decades. "I've been waiting for that signal. The Scourge follow a trail, the same one the Invictus sends out when it's active. It's not your fault. This ship was never a warship. It was bait." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Bait? For what?" Hale's eyes darkened. "For the last war humanity fought and almost lost. The Scourge are not invaders in the normal sense. They are cleaners. They erase everything that resists. And 200 years ago, Earth's answer was to lead them away. With a fleet. They could never resist chasing." The room went quiet. The hum of the station's old engines filled the space like a warning drum. "You want to survive?" Hale said. "Then you need to know what's inside this outpost. And you need to decide if you're willing to use it." He walked to a locked chamber at the back of the command room. With a hiss, the door slid open. Inside was a single object, smooth, black, and radiating a faint red glow. "This," Hale said, "is what ended the last Scourge wave. It is not a weapon in the way you understand. It is worse." Rourke's voice was low. "How bad?" Hale smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "Bad enough that after we used it, Earth swore it would never be touched again." The weapon. The black object sat in the center of the small chamber, like it had been waiting for centuries. It wasn't large, barely the size of a human head, but the air around it felt wrong, heavy, cold, as if space itself bent toward it. Rourke stared at it. "What is it?" Hale stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "It's called the Core, built before the Exodus, powered by something we don't fully understand. It doesn't fire. It doesn't explode. It changes things." One of Rourke's Marines shifted uneasily. "Changes how?" Hale's eyes darkened. "It tears through matter, time, and thought. Whatever it touches doesn't just die. It's erased. No memory, no record, no echo in the universe. Gone as if it never existed." The Marine swallowed hard. "You mean it can delete an entire fleet?" Hale looked at him. "Not just fleets, worlds." The room was silent except for the slow hum of the object. Even the lights seemed dimmer here. Rourke finally spoke. "Why was this kept here?" Hale's voice hardened. "Because after it was used last time, half the galaxy swore to destroy humanity if we ever activated it again. The Core didn't just end the Scourge wave. It erased 3 inhabited planets they were hiding behind. Billions vanished. And our allies still remember." Rourke stepped back, running a hand over his jaw. "If we don't use it, the Scourge will burn Earth's colonies one by one. If we do use it, we might bring the entire galaxy against us." Hal nodded. "That's the choice, and you have less than 70 hours to make it." The captain turned to leave. but the hum of the object grew louder, almost like it could hear them. Almost like it was awake. The Invictus comms officer's voice cracked over the radio. Captain, enemy fleet just exited FTL, 48 hours ahead of expected arrival. They're already in system. Rourke froze. Halley closed his eyes. Then the Corps has already called to them. The choice the Invictus shook as the first wave of long-range fire slammed against her shields. Warning lights filled the bridge, painting the crew in red and gold. 40 enemy warships, closing fast. The tactical officer shouted, "They're ignoring the other colonies. They're coming straight for us." Rourke gripped the edge of the command chair. His crew looked to him, waiting for the order. Every second lost meant another volley from the Scourge. Halley stood at his side, calm but cold. "You know what must be done, Captain. The Corps was built for this." Rourke's jaw tightened. "If I activate it, I'll be the man who invites another galactic war." Halley didn't blink. "If you don't, you'll be the man who let Earth's last defense burn." The deck trembled again as a fresh barrage hit. A young ensign whispered under her breath, "We can't hold this, sir." Rourke closed his eyes for just a moment. He saw the faces of his crew. He thought about Earth's cities, its oceans, the laughing children who had no idea a fleet of nightmares was coming. He opened his eyes. "Engineering, prepare the Corps for deployment." The bridge fell silent. The tactical officer stared at him. "Sir, that's a point of no return," Rourke nodded. "I know." Deep within the ship, massive clamps released. The Corps lifted slowly into a containment field, glowing faintly now, like a star about to be born. Alarms in a dozen languages began sounding across the Invictus. On the enemy flagship, the Scourge commander leaned forward. "They've brought it back?" His voice trembled. "Retreat, now." But it was too late. The Corps began to hum, the air vibrating as reality. Itself started to twist. Halley looked to Rourke. "Once you give the signal, Captain, there's no undoing this. Not for them, and not for us." Rourke turned to the crew. "May history forgive us." The firing the Invictus floated in the darkness, surrounded by the enemy fleet. Every gun was aimed at her, every hostile signal screaming for surrender. But inside her steel heart, the Corps pulsed like a living sun. Final charge. 90%, engineering reported. The hum in the air had become a roar, a deep vibration that rattled the bones. Rourke stood at the center of the bridge, face like stone. Hale's eyes were locked on the enemy formation. "They won't retreat. They think we're bluffing." Flash of memory hit Rourke, a younger version of himself, standing in front of the graves of fallen comrades, swearing never to let humanity be brought to its knees again. He gave the order. Fire. The Corps erupted. It wasn't light. It wasn't fire. It was silence that ripped through space, swallowing the screams of engines, crushing the power from enemy weapons, stripping the stars themselves from view. One by one, the Scourge. Ships crumpled inward, folding into nothing, as if the universe decided they had never existed. The bridge crew held their breath. When the glow faded, only the Invictus remained. The enemy fleet was gone, not destroyed, but erased. "Sir?" The tactical officer whispered, staring at the sensors. "It's quiet, everywhere." Rourke didn't answer. His hands were trembling. Halley spoke softly, almost to herself. "The galaxy will never forget this day, or forgive it." Rourke finally looked up at the crew. "Send the message, Earth stands. We will always stand." Far across the galaxy, in dark war rooms and shining council halls, alien leaders saw the transmission. Some shivered, some raged, but all of them understood one thing. Humanity had drawn a line, and crossing it meant vanishing, ending hook for audience. And somewhere, deep in the black, the Corps still hummed. waiting.